This is Ivy Unleashed, a Gold Ivy production. Chris Thomas, or YP Youth Pastor, welcome to Ivy Unleashed. How you doing?
Hey, I am phenomenal. How you guys doing?
Oh, we are so blessed to be in your presence, to share you with our audience. You have a story, man, and when we met in Pennsylvania / New Jersey, because we were in two places at once across the bridge.
At one time, right? All right.
I knew that our listeners needed to hear your story. So to set the stage, let's tell them how Chris Thomas, or YP, became a motivational speaker. Where did you start?
That's a great question. So I'm a church boy. I was raised in church all my life. So, a lot of the influence came from speaking. One of my favorite people at church was a youth pastor that we were connected with in Atlanta, my Uncle David Johnson. And I love the way he speaks, his mannerisms and all that stuff. So as I, got older, growing up in church, of course, I was a musician and other things. So I was always in front of people. So I was never really nervous to be in front of people. And then get older, go to college. And my dad asked me, to speak on one of the youth services. And it was so crazy because from a calling standpoint and spiritual standpoint, I didn't want to be a speaker, pastor, anything like that, but the first time I did it, I remember crying on the way back to school because I didn't want that gift, but it felt so good to use that gift. So it's like a crazy conflict. I knew that I have something special in my voice, when I started to speak and minister. So that's where it really started. The root of it really started. Going into motivational speaking was probably when I was 27, for about 10 years now, when I started to take that element more seriously because of a huge inspiration in Eric Thomas, E.T., to hear the way he goes at it, how confident he is, and that's just his approach. That was the first time I saw a motivational speaker like that. So at 27, that's when the motivational speaking really came out. But from a young age, really hitting at about 23 is when I started speaking, publicly from ministry and, in the church atmosphere.
Interesting. It's so funny because Brooke is obsessed with Eric Thomas and she sends me like video clips of him all the time.
And we're going to go see him live and you should come with. That's going to be an off-air conversation. But
yeah, yes, please.
You need that motivation, and you're right. There is something within your voice, your presence, and hearing your story of specifically 2021, of what that year was like for you, was a wow moment. So let's dive into that. Take us back to 2021. What happened?
Oh, man. So 2021, and Brooke will laugh at this, 2021 was the absolutely worst year in my life. And it started in January. I had my first, my last born, my baby boy, my third son, and I found out I had COVID like 2 days before he was born. So it started with COVID. Then my son was born. So you have this joyous high moment, and 2 weeks later, my marriage flipped upside down. And that started the long process of a separation and a divorce. But it all started at the beginning of 2021. So I'm asked to move out the house, 2 weeks after, the incident happened. And then 2 weeks later, my grandfather passes away, who was a very huge pillar in the Thomas household, starting from, churches and if you want to call titles, your apostles, bishop, pastors, he was the top of the line. So that was a huge blow. So recovering from that trauma, in 2 months of trauma in a short amount of time, I'm trying to, adjust to life without seeing my sons every day, life without being married, every day is a struggle and a battle. So, to have different things coming at you while you mentally going nuts and you're depressed and you're sad. It's a tough process, you know. So in March, that was all of March. And in April, I started to turn a little corner, you know, as much of a corner you can turn under those circumstances, right? Because every day is a battle. But I'm starting to get better. You know, life is getting better. I started to work a side gig, was a network marketing business and trading. That's how I got into trading, and the business was doing well. You know, I was started receiving residual checks, you know, every month. So I was building the business. So I go to a conference at the end of April for this business. Great conference. I come back, I'm on fire. So, you know, that first week of May, I'm pumped. You know, I just ran a meeting on May the 4th. I run a meeting. It was great. Many people in there. You know, it was really, really good. I go to sleep extremely happy. And then May the 5th of 2021, I woke up and I could not talk. Like I couldn't speak. I couldn't say words, colors, names, phrases. I sounded like a complete baby. And I woke up, I looked at my phone and my phone was doing something funky. Maybe I was just crazy, you know, because I had that stroke. My phone is acting dumb and I can't figure out what's going on. So I try to say, what the heck? And it sounds like a complete baby. It's mumble. In my head, I sound completely fine. But when I try to talk, there's nothing coming out. I panic. And everybody was like, what? I panic and I drive myself to work. Why didn't I drive myself to the hospital? I don't know. I just had a stroke. Leave me alone. So I drive myself to work and I say, hey, if I get to my office, I can write, I can't talk, and I can get some help. That's my thought pattern. Mm-hmm. I get to my office, you know, the whole way I'm driving, I'm trying to say anything I can. It's to the point I'm screaming at the top of my lungs, trying to form a word because I don't know what the heck is happening. Why am I so coherent? Why do I know exactly what's going on? But I can't talk. What the heck is this? So I'm panicking. I get to my job. I get to my office. I get a pen and a pad, and I sit down so I can write. You know, I can't talk, and that's when I found out I can't write either. I can't talk, and I can't write. Like all the ways of communication, like I can't do it. It's crazy how the brain works to shut that off. Everything else is fine, but I can't talk and I can't write. What is this? So, you know, I have to write really slow because my hand just does whatever it wants. So I'll write really slow. I can't talk in this chicken scratch, but it's readable. And then one of my managers comes in, you know, he's high energy. Chris, you know, what's going on, man? How you doing? And I wave him to a side office and I hand him the note. And he looks at me and he's, you know, a joke. So he was like, man, what do you mean you got laryngitis? What you mean you can't talk? You know, he's, you know, because that's my guy. And I try to say something and I sound like a 1-year-old baby trying to mumble words, and his eyes pop open like a deer, like, whoa. It's like, hey, hold on, man. And he goes and gets another manager that's kind of a real health guy. And he came in and he did some checks and stuff. He was like, I don't think it's a stroke, but we need to get you to the hospital right now. So we get to the hospital. They don't even say stroke because my memory, my muscle memory, you know, I'm not slumped on one side. My face is not, you know, slurred, or my words are not slurred. I just can't talk. So they run these tests and then they ran an EKG and a CAT scan. And then probably about an hour and a half later, they came in and said, you know, Mr. Thomas, you have had an embolic stroke in your sleep. And then finding out, you know, the next day and a couple of days later, I had a hole in my heart and a blood clot didn't filter through, and it got through that hole and it traveled to my brain. And that's what caused the embolic stroke. They call it an expressive stroke. At least my aunt, that's a nurse manager and a professor at South Carolina University, she was like, yeah, they call it an expressive stroke. She said, so you can comprehend everything, but you can't express. verbally or connect, the dots in your mind. You can comprehend everything, but your ways of communication, you can't, that's the cause of that stroke. So I literally had to teach myself how to talk again. You guys might not hear it, but oh my God, I hear it all the time because I know how I used to talk. Like I have to slow down, I have to concentrate, I have to be very cognizant of how I pronounce, and I have an over pronounce, and I have to stop because my mind is going faster than the muscle memory in my mouth from the stroke has caught up with. So it has been a significant journey, but because of me being a motivational speaker and an author and a minister and all that stuff, like I just realized it's more of a spiritual fight than it is a natural fight. Apparently my voice is powerful to the point that the attack is on my voice. You mean to tell me I can run, jump, skip, hop, all this stuff? I don't have no physical issues. My blood pressure's fine, cholesterol fine, all the counts, they ran everything. And the doctor is like, hey, Mr. Thomas, you can lose some weight, but who can't? But other than that, like, you're fine. We don't really know what's going on before they knew the technical reason. So, I saw that as more spiritual than natural. And I changed my mind. I was like, yo, you're not going to shut me up. I might stutter. I might sound different. I might not can pronounce my R's and my W's because they give me the worst. But I might not be able to pronounce those, but you're not going to shut me up. My story is for somebody. My resilience and the way I had to change and the things that I went through and the mindset that I've built now to be able to, handle those valleys. Like that's for somebody. Our life is not about us. At the end of the day, it's to be able to share stories with other people and help other people recognize, the situation they're in, but there is hope and there is, a promise for that end. So, I take that incident and that event very, very seriously and significant because I truly believe that life happens for you and not to you, and that's something I've really been able to see and, experience for myself.
First of all, thank God that you are here with us today. And second, how terrifying. Your gift is literally stripped away from you in an instant. And now you have to relearn how to speak again.
How to talk again.
How to talk again. And I'm sure everyone wondering, myself included, is how? What did that process look like? Because not only are you learning how to talk again, but also the mindset shift of this is happening for me and not to me, not playing the victim.
It was terrifying, and I think you guys have seen all the videos that I have on TikTok and Instagram and social media of like me literally in the hospital trying to say zebra and Pineville and counting. And you can hear like, oh my God, like he cannot talk. You know what I mean? So terrifying, depressing when you do something so well. Like it's a difference between having your gift attacked and just something you do. You know what I'm saying? If like my left pinky got cut off, I'll be devastated, but I'll be okay. Like it's a major thing, but I think I can make this work but my voice, what I use to make money, what I use to encourage, inspire, and motivate, like the gift, like the thing that I do that gives me the most passion that I would do for free. And you take that, like, and then it was a deeper meaning for me too, because my motivation for some extent was a little bit of a facade because I used my motivation to hide behind my pain and my trauma. So it was a coping mechanism too. So yeah, it had a gift. I won't say a curse, but it had a negative side to it too, because I used it to hide my pain. Going through therapy, trying to learn how to talk, the things you learn about the muscle memory and the tongue and the mouth and how we form words, like you never think about having to think about that stuff because we do it naturally. We just talk. But when you don't have it, like you realize like, yo, you have a different appreciation for it. And I went to speech therapy. I had a best friend of mine named Brian McClellan. He was the first person in my crew. A lot of people came to see me, but he was the first person to arrive when he heard what was going on. Like I was still trying to figure out what's happening when he came in. And he was a medic and worked in physical therapy for the Army. So he had some experience with this. So he came in with his iPad board. He kind of took over for the nurses, not in a aggressive way, but when they came in, he already had stuff that, hey, listen, he can do this, he can do that, he can write. It looks like he can comprehend. It doesn't look like this, blah, blah, blah. He was like, I was a medic in the Army for this amount of years. I'm just telling you what I see. So, he used to call me every day and make me talk. Like he would call me every day. Hey, what's up, man? Talk to me. What's up? And then I'll talk and he was like, hey, say that again. Hey, okay, hey, repeat that. All right, okay. Every single day. And he would say it like, bro, I'm gonna call you every day, bro. You gonna talk, man. You gonna be all right. So that, and then, my ex-wife, I had to move in and she helped a lot too with making me say certain words and things like that. But it was terrifying because you don't know if you ever get that gift back again. Like you feel like at that time, I'll never be able to talk the way I used to talk. And there's a double side to that. That's a fact, but there's also power with that too, because for every hello, there's a goodbye. So I had to say goodbye to that season and like this a hello to a new season. Like there's a purpose, there's a reason this happened. So it gave me a different passion for talking. It gave me a different ability to reach people that have went through divorce and have went through a traumatic experience. I can't tell you how many people I meet off of from my stroke story that have a similar story, and we're connected because of that. So it was terrifying, man. Very, very terrifying. But to see where I'm at now, I miss my Jamaican accent. I really do, because I sounded like a Jamaican for about 2 months. Other than that, man, to see where I'm at now, it's humbling. Sometimes I watch videos and get emotional because, sometimes I can hear myself talk like, oh my God, I sound good again. And then other times because I hear it in my head, it's like, oh Lord, I can't talk, so it's a double-edged sword, but it's a blessing to be able to do my gift again, motivate, inspire, and encourage. So, for that, I'm forever grateful.
It's so interesting how you can see someone speak right now or hear them right now and have absolutely no idea what you've been through. Like I would never have guessed that if Brooke didn't tell me and if I didn't start following you. There's so much to unpack in what you've said, because I'm thinking about you're learning to speak at the same time that your baby's learning to speak. In a household that you are technically like getting a divorce from, but someone is taking care of you, plus other children, plus reflecting on your gifts, plus uncovering how you've coped with trauma from your childhood. So that is just a year.
A beast.
Oh my gosh. So first of all, we could have 7 episodes, but what I would love to get into is coping with childhood trauma, right? And how we have this one way that we typically lean on, and that was attacked for you. And now you're back and you're able to speak about it now. But can we talk about your childhood, kind of what you went through and how you're kind of using your experience with that trauma to help other people?
I think there's a lot of families that deal with this specific trauma that I'm going to talk about, but we never talk about it, especially in my, African-American community. But what I'm learning now from the people that, because of my story, I've been able to connect to and talk to, man, it's across every dynamic. And, it's something that has to be really spoken to for the people that experienced it and they can't get past the trauma and the hurt and the pain. When I was from about 8 years old to about 11, that 3-year period, I was molested, by a close person from our church. They were a teenager, Sometimes I have to call it like it was. Like it wasn't forceful, but it was child rape. as crazy that it is to hear, like, I'm not afraid to talk about that now, because I know it's happened to other people and they don't feel like they have a space to talk about it. So, I do great household makeup. I was with both of my parents. I had a brother. I was in church all the time. But nobody is safe from experiences in life. And sometimes they're traumatic at adulthood. Sometimes they're traumatic at childhood. Sometimes they're traumatic in both. So, growing up, not understanding what happened to me, as I got older and then I started to understand what happened to me, it sparks the thought like, oh my God, like, am I attracted to men now? Like what, you know what I mean? Like you deal with that question. Then, and by high school, I'm like, no, like a screwed up thing happened to me, but I like women. I love women. Like I don't have to ask that question anymore, so, but you have to deal with that mentally. So growing up, in high school, I was confident in who I was, but I wasn't because I was still that little kid that was, shattered. Then I get to college, and because of what I deal with my trauma, I never forget that I'm on my recruiting visit because I played football there, and it was talking about making sure you're in the weight room so your body looks good. Girls like the muscle, guys, and I was like, yeah, especially when you got your shirt off. So the guy cut a joke, an innocent joke. He was like, he liked them men with them shirt off, oh, he funny, whatever. But he didn't know my trauma. So that triggered like, okay, oh, I'm about to try to have relations with everybody I can because I don't want to be seen as, gay, whatever. You know what I mean? That is a trauma response, you know what I'm saying, from what happened to me. And that eventually, because I needed that validation, and I needed that, validation from a woman because I was violated by a man, like I just needed attention. I became an attention junkie, you know what I mean? And then college exposes you to so many new people. So from my hometown, I wasn't the guy. But when you go to another environment and you found out what kind of people are attracted to you, like, oh, she fine and she think I'm fine. I became an attention whore, right? Because of that trauma. So, my childhood blew up in my marriage because I didn't handle the trauma of my childhood. I still needed attention. I still needed validation from a woman, and because I was violated by the man, I would shut down. I didn't really talk about my hurts, my pains, or my trauma. I didn't try to deal with it. So I just tried to bury all this stuff. And you can't do that. Like there's nothing in nature that can hold things forever with no release. You can't find anything in human nature that can do that. There's some kind of release from somewhere. So like if you just burying things and packaging things and putting things away, like eventually that house is going to get full and you have to do one or two things, or you have one or two decisions. You can unpack the stuff that you have going on and heal and make space and room because there's more life coming. So there's more packages of trauma and hurts coming. So deal with them as they come so you can make space, or like anything, is going to spew over and become massively public. And everybody's going to know you have issues, and everybody's going to know you're depressed, and everybody, because it's going to spew out and show, So my childhood made me close off to those mindsets. And it wasn't until I had the stroke and I had to take accountability for what I caused in my family dynamic because of my trauma and stop pointing the finger, because I also believe, that was a sign from God to say, hey, you need to focus up and look at life right now. And because I wanted to stay busy to not do it, he was like, okay, all right, you got to sit down for a minute. And because I was so stressed, that caused that stroke, but it made me sit down and deal with life and where I'm going, and where's your mentality at right now? Like, what's the traumas that's holding you back? What's the habits, routines, and agreements you made in your life that's holding you back, making you be this man that just blew up your whole family dynamic? You have to change the man or the results won't shift. So it made me deal with that stuff and be more aware of my actions. And I still, I think we're still mastering everything we do in life, but I'm still mastering that mindset. But I know if it wasn't for that shift, accepting my childhood, accepting who I was, accepting the trauma I had to deal with, and not letting it define me, but me defining it, because it happened to me, but that's not who I am. So I don't have to make these decisions. I don't have to go by these habits and routines. I can switch these habits and routines and be more productive in my life. I went through that cycle, and I saw the benefits of that cycle. So, accepting your childhood, dealing with your childhood, and handling the pain of your childhood is very important. Very, very important.
Oh my gosh.
We got a crier over here.
Ah,
What's coming up for you?
it's just that like the truth always comes out in multiple forms or ways, whether it's physically creating a stroke in your body, if it's you having to tell the truth about what happened to you. It's so powerful that you are still here and able to articulate words, but also coach people through this. Like from what you just said in the last 2 minutes, you are going to set so many people free. I'm thinking of 10 people in my life right now that need to hear this message. And I'm so happy I have a platform to share it because, especially as a male, there are so many men walking around depressed, anxious, over drinking, overusing substances because they don't know how to let the truth come out or to cope. And so the fact that you can help people with their mindset and recognize it in yourself and then articulate it, I'm just so happy that you have this gift and that you're able to talk about it right now.
Wow. That means, a lot, because like I said, it's not about you. You have to go through it, but what's the purpose of it? We always talk about telling your testimony. It doesn't become a testimony until you talk about it. Otherwise it's just a test. We all have got our test back in class and we didn't have to share it. If you failed, you put it in your book bag and then you lied about what you got because you don't want to be the one that had the 22. You know what I mean? So it's the same, concept. Like it's a test. Yeah, you failed, or this happened, or your decision caused this to transpire. But you have to take accountability for that, and there's a freedom in the truth. And it's crazy because I was such a person that was closed off and avoided confrontation and avoided conflict or tough conversations. But now it's like, no, because that leads to peace. Like, yeah, it's uncomfortable for a minute, but once it's out in the air and we good and we get it out, like, okay, I'm more peaceful now. I didn't have that mindset because I needed to be a people pleaser. There's so much that comes up when you are molested, especially at a young age, and then depending to the degree of it, right? And it happened to me for years, 3 years. So like I believe in when my experience, like I can relate. I understand everything that comes with that. And it's not the act, because the act lasts, for me, it was 3 years, right? But for close to 30 years, 29, 28 years, it has affected my life for 29 years. And the reason is because like the habits and the routines and the agreements you make because of that trauma, you live by those. So once you get to an adult age and they're not working anymore because it's from a childhood shame and a childhood pain, you can't graduate to that next phase in life because this stuff is going to hold you back. So you got to deal with the habits and the routines, know the triggers. Like, why do I feel that way? And a lot of times it's not parallel to what happened. Like, I was molested, but the agreements I made because of the molestation weren't parallel to the act. Like, I had self-worth issues. I had self-esteem issues. I had ego issues, like pride, because what happened to me was so degrading. I had to fake this sense of pride because I didn't have any. It's a very dark place that a lot of people don't see because it's not highlighted. And now because we're in mental health is big, and, taking care of your mind and your spirituality, like, I think a lot of people are starting to be open to understanding they need to unpack that, because a lot of people die with that still on their heart. They never told a soul. That is a imprisonment, in bondage. And if I can use my story to help people get out of that, just that, I feel like I did what, and I am doing what I'm really called to do, because life happened for me to be able to do this, and it didn't happen to me.
Ugh, so powerful. And it's clear that your trauma, speaking on it, dealing with it, has transformed you. And your hope is that it will transform others, which it is. So will you talk about how you've seen being open with it, not only transform yourself, because you just did beautifully, but how it's transforming others? They hear your message. What do you encourage them to do about it?
I do life coaching, and two of the clients that I had, it was specifically because they were molested, right? And I did a speech in a men's conference, and I opened up about everything I'm talking to you about. Like, if I'm speaking, I'm going to be speaking about my 2021. You know what I mean? That is my go-to, because it has the most substance. And it's been amazing how many people I have been able to meet because I've told my story, and people that have asked me, hey man, what did you do here? What did you do there? And I'm able to coach them through. And that experience has been phenomenal because I can see the change and the shift. It's been phenomenal for me because I deal with trauma or traumatic things or difficult things or valley moments a lot different now. I still get frustrated because I'm still not perfect at it. So sometimes I still have my moments. And that's where you have to give yourself grace. And this is very, very important when dealing with the matters of the heart, because it takes time to change that stuff. We put this time frame, and you look at people and parents and relatives that may not have got it until they were 52, 53, but they lived a beautiful life, so it's daily work. So I've seen it in my life, just the way I handle things physically. I was living in a roach infested room for a year in 2021. God favored me and blessed me to have a roof over my head. I never worried about heat. I never worried about air. I was safe. Like, I was good. So I was blessed to have that. But just the dynamic of going from a 2,500 square foot home, 4-bedroom home, to a roach infested apartment, one room on an air mattress for a year. And I went from those two dynamics to now having a townhome, 3-bedroom townhome for my boys. For me to go from that high to that low to this high, like, you have to have a mindset to get out of those pits. So I know, like, I can get out of pits. I know how to be have perseverance, or to be able to get hit and get back up. The stroke taught me that. So, I can see the difference on when I handle those kind of situations. I'm not a people pleaser as much as I was, and it hasn't caused any issues with relationships because it was self-inflicted wounds. If I don't want to do something, I say no. If I want to do it, I say yes. And I'll have to feel bad or take things personal because of the response of what people said to me, or what they, because of my response of what I do or don't want to do. I want to plug this book, man. It's called The Four Agreements. I can't exactly remember the author's name, but that book absolutely changed my life.
That book has been brought up like 4 times on this podcast in the last like 150 episodes. Like I feel like every 20 episodes, someone plugs that book because it's so must be so good.
Changed my life. Changed my life. Be impeccable with your word. Don't take don't take things personal. Don't make assumptions. Always do your best.
Ooh.
They sound very cliche, right? But then when you read that book and it breaks down how agreements that we have made throughout our life, this is just the 4 agreements that you can make, but you have already made agreements in your life. I'll never let somebody love me like this. I'll never get close to anybody anymore. I'll never trust a man with my heart. I'll never trust a woman with my heart. I never let somebody talk to me the way my dad talked to my mom. You've made those agreements. That's childhood stuff. You know what I mean? So when you really want to affect change, if something's not working, you got to go back to the root of it. And that book, I think it just sparks an awakening from self. And naturally, because of the way the book makes you think, you start to unpack some things. Like you really have to study that book to get the full impact. And I had a chance to do that with the business I was in. That was something we did. We had to read that book. We had to give a report on that book. We was in that book for about 2 months. So the nuggets and the jewels that you get out of it is so inspiring. And that book really changed my life. And with all of my clients, that's included in their, packet. Like you get my book and you get the 4 agreements. And this, like the way I've created in my FACE program, we go through these books and we go through questions and exercises just to spark your mind to take more self-accountability. Realize when you're self-inflicting wounds, and realize when you're making assumptions and you don't really have clarity, and being able to be impeccable with your words and how you talk to yourself, how you motivate yourself, how you stay away from absolute comments and always try to be positive, and how you, don't take things personal. And that's the one that really, really saved me, because I took everything so personal because I had a low self-esteem. So anything you say to me that's contradicting to what I believe, like I took that personal, and that's pain from the little kid that was molested, right? So you got to be able to know what triggers that. And this is not easy work. Matters of the heart is not easy. And a lot of people don't want to stick to it because it's self-accountability. You have to take account. You can't point the finger. This is about you. You have to uncover your mess, your dirt, your filth, and you got to be able to deal with it and let go of these habits that are not progressing you and accept the habits that are progressing you. The habits that do progress you might be things you have to do that you don't want to do, but you have to assess what's the reward and what's the risk. If I don't do this, I end up with this kind of life. If I do this, it helps my life. Life is not about always doing just what you want to do. Sometimes you got to do what you got to do. And, life happens for you. Like, what's the purpose of this? What's the reason for this? It doesn't happen just to you. That's the difference between a victor's mindset and a victim's mindset. If life is happening to you, you're victimized. If our life is always happening for you, you have a victorious mindset. And that's very important with navigating life.
Yeah, something I keep thinking about. So I feel like if you're the victim and it happened to you, you can stay stuck, right? You don't have to do the uncomfortable work and whatnot. But I also think if something this traumatic has happened to you, you might be very anxious or very depressed and in this hole. And so, you've already given some tips on like how to start, giving yourself some time and some grace, and maybe starting with this book and your book, right? But how do you help people that come to you that are so stuck and they're angry about what happened to them? They're holding on to it because it should have never happened. Like, how do you help people out of that hole?
I have a model, and it is called the FACE model, and it stands for forgiveness, accountability, counsel, and evaluation. And that's what I did in my process. So this will, after I reflected on all the things I did, I created like this was the format that gave me peace. First, you have to forgive. You know, you'll be amazed how forgiveness will help you undig some things, because a lot of people parallel forgiveness to me needing to forgive you. But we miss out on the huge dynamic and the huge level of freedom when you forgive yourself. A lot of people don't understand like what that means. Like, taking accountability for your actions, right, will help you forgive yourself. So forgiveness is the number one thing. And I tell people, I need you to write down names, situations, and things that you just feel like you haven't forgiven yourself. Like, it still stings. You can't really talk about it. You can't really verbalize it. You kind of, you shy away from that. That's things you fear. Write all those things down and let's talk about these things. You will be amazed how we will find the answers for ourselves when we just talk about it. We literally don't talk enough. We don't talk about what we're feeling in here. Like, okay, if you're not comfortable with doing that with your husband or your wife yet, okay, all right, I get it. Or a friend, you need to have a therapist or somebody. And that's a phase too. But forgiveness, like, spark those things up and then forgive those people that you need to forgive. And let those things go. If that's, you need to write a letter, you need to have a conversation. What you choose. I'm not going to direct you to choosing the path. I just want to spark the conversation so you can figure it out for yourself. I'm not here to give you all the answers. I'm just here to spark the conversation to make you think. So first is the forgiveness, and then accountability, and taking accountability for not only what you did, but also what you caused, because what you caused did something, so, what did you do? Well, like the things that you did, not anybody else, and taking accountability for those things. That right there is where the digging really, really, really starts, because now you're taking accountability for your actions. Was it sparked or triggered by something? Absolutely. But we're just talking about your actions and what you did. How could you have handled that better? Why did that trigger you? Why is that a trigger? What happened to make that something that makes you uncomfortable? And that's where the digging begins, and taking accountability for that. And once you take accountability, you can forgive yourself to say, okay, I did that, and I'm not, it doesn't feel good that I did it, but at least now the weight of hiding it and the weight of not talking about it is off my shoulders. And now I can, understand why I did it, and I can move on. It's something I did, but it's not who I am. And you forgive yourself and you move forward. And then the C is for counsel. Like I said, you need an outlet. And we just talk about what's going to be the outlet. After my program runs, it's you have a 3 and a 6 month term. So when you come out of this, what is going to be, do we want to retain and continue this, or who's somebody you be able to be accountable to have that release? Because I don't want them to make the decision for it to be me just because they feel like they have to. No, you have a option. But if you want that to be me, no problem. And then evaluation. Okay, what's working for you? What habits and routines are working for you that you see success from? And what habits and routines are not working for you? And you cannot be biased on this. Like, just because you like it doesn't mean it's working for you. And just because you don't like it doesn't mean it's not working for you. So you got to be real. And how do I get away from what's not working? And how do I draw closer to what is working? I believe if you can navigate those 4 spaces of forgiveness, accountability, seeking counsel, and evaluation in your life, I think that can definitely progress you from a mindset to be able to just live a peaceful, everyday life. We peace is such a priceless commodity. Like, how do I get peace? And to get peace, you have to do work. It doesn't come easy. So, that's the model. And that's what I take people through in my coaching, and just navigate that conversation and dig and dig and dig to get to the root. And you have to want to dig too. If you don't want to dig, it ain't gonna work, because you got to get dirty, to give yourself some freedom.
I love it. And there's things within there that everyone can use, whether you have big T trauma or not. Things that Andrew and I use on the daily of evaluating your habits, your routines. Who doesn't want peace? These are things that everyone can use. And another amazing resource that we've teased a little is your book. So let's get into Go Be Great. What is the book about? What is your hope? Let's get into it.
Oh man, so I wrote this book through writing emails at my job before I started, my motivational speaking career. And it's called Go Be Great, 14 Principles to Increase Your Greatness. And it's just a book for the every average, everyday average person that's looking for principles they can use to just have a better quality of life. Everybody wants peace. Everybody wants to be able to, rest assured that things are going to be okay, and motivation. So I started writing these emails at my job for me, just to motivate myself, right? And I messed around, sent it out to my team of about 9 people one day. And I did that for about 2 or 3 weeks. And then I used to send it out on Wednesdays. It was called Wednesday Motivation. Didn't send one week. And about 2:00, somebody was like, Chris, we didn't get the email today. What happened? I was like, yeah, I didn't write one today. I was like, oh, no, you can't do that. Like, no, you got to write one every week now. So like that became the expectation, right? So I wrote one every week and sent it out to my team. And then they started sharing it, and people started getting CC'd on it. And it became this list, and it became from like 9 people, it became a list of about 120, 130 something people that was getting these Wednesday motivations. And then managers and people that was receiving it would email it to their counterparts in other, corporate bankings and stuff like that. And so I don't know how many people it reached, but I do know that's when I realized, okay, all right, I have a voice, people are responding to this. So when I decided to quit my job to pursue, the speaking, I wanted to do 2 things: write a book and become a certified life coach. Did a life coaching class, became certified. I started working on the book, and a friend of mine sent me a book map, and it like you write the title, and then you kind of write your 4 main points, and then you kind of write 3 points for each point that you want to highlight. So I did that, and when we did the book map, shout out to my friend Will Featherstone. We was meeting at the office. He was like, "Oh, we're gonna do it right now. Come on, go on the board." So we went on the whiteboard, and I sat back, was like, "Oh my God, I have all this content from my emails. Like everything I want to write down is like a title of one of the emails I sent." Because, what I'm saying, I was motivating myself. So I went back, collected all those emails, and then I kind of wrote a little bit more, filled in some things to, make it flow a little bit better. And then I used those top 14 principles to, write this book, principles that there's a process to progress. Sometimes we get frustrated about where we're at in life, understanding that it's a process. You're progressing. It just takes a process. Stop being a landlord is one of my favorite ones. We are allowing situations, people, things, circumstances live rent-free in our brains, and they're paying us with nothing but confusion, deception, anger, frustration. Like, stop being a landlord of these thoughts. Stop holding on to these thoughts. They ain't paying you no rent anyway. Evict. these mind, these thoughts. So principles like that could be understood and relative to anybody, to the highest of the highest, and to the not so best of the situations that people are in. It can relate and motivate and inspire you, in every way. So that was my desire, and it was 14 principles that I believed helped me the most. And that's what I put in that book. And that became, Go Be Great, the 14 principles to increase your greatness.
Awesome. Where can people find your book?
It is on Amazon. You type in Go Be Great, YP Thomas. You guys can purchase on there. If you want a signed copy, I tell everybody you can reach out to my DM. I have books on, standby for that. And that's 15 because the, packaging, but you get a message, you get, my signature. And you can reach out to me on Instagram, TikTok for, any of that, or email me at Thomas@gmail.com. And just reach out and I'll send you a personalized autographed book.
I want an autographed book. All right, now we're talking. What about socials? Where can people find you and all your gold on social media?
So I am on TikTok as YPT_3. And then it is YP_Thomas on Instagram. It is YP Thomas on Facebook, and YPmotivations.com. You can look me up there and you can book some apparel, shirts like this and stuff like that on there too. So that's all the ways you can communicate, and, you can reach out. I would love to come conferences, speaking opportunities, book clubs, whatever you got, man. I would love to be a part of what of your vision is and what my story is. If it connects, reach out. Would love to, work with you and hopefully be a guest like I was today.
What I love too so much about social is the connection worldwide, right? Because we currently at this point have 83 countries that tune in. And sometimes it's tricky when people are only like, they just have products that are shipped here, or like, because, Amazon's kind of tricky sometimes. But the fact that you can personally message you on TikTok from anywhere in the world, or Instagram, like, it's really powerful. And I'm just so happy too that across different channels you're sharing your message, because I think some people aren't book readers. Some people have never been on TikTok, right? The fact that you're on different channels and have a website, like, it sounds like everybody should do that, but they don't. And so it's just like more access to you is what everybody needs. I can already just see people being like, I need to talk with him. I need to follow him. I want more of his story. I want to see him trying to speak. I want to, all these things. So just to have a little bit more from you, just because you're so great with all these tips and principles. I love it. We always share 3 gold stars. So your 3 big takeaways, maybe from your 14, I don't know what your top 3 would be, but your 3 gold stars.
I already gave you stop being a landlord, and a process of progress. 3 things that are absolutely non-negotiable. That's your faith, your hope, and your love. That'll be my 3, right? Those are 3 things that are absolutely non-negotiable. And your faith is non-negotiable because no matter what you go through, you have to have the faith to believe that you're going to get through that, and you're going to see the end. We always talk about faith is the substance of things hoped for, right? So it goes faith, hope, and love. Faith is the substance of the things that are hoped for. So faith and then hope. Like, hope is huge. Like, without a hope, you don't really have what you need to apply your faith to. You have to have an expectation. Like, what are you expecting out of life? What are you expecting out of this decision? What are you expecting to see? You can call those things into existence, whether it be negative or whether it be positive. So, like, what is the expectation? And then once you have the expectation, you really can apply your faith to it. So your hope really employs your faith, so faith and hope, and then you have love. You have to love yourself enough to have the faith and to have a hope for, so you can progress in your life. Like, how can you hit something that you can't see? Like, what is the vision that you're looking for? What's the vision for your life? What's the plan for your life? If you don't have a vision, you can't hit it. You can't even see it. So if you don't love yourself enough to give yourself a vision, how can you have faith and hope? So love is the most important one, that love for self that makes you want to desire to be whole from a financial, spiritual, physical, everything in your life, you want to be aligned in that. If that's the case, I believe mastering, understanding the principle of these are three things that are non-negotiable. I don't care what you're going through. I don't care what you're facing. I don't care what's happening. You can let go of everything else, but you have to hold on to your faith, to your hope, and to your love. That will be my 3 stars.
Mic drop. Everyone go listen, rewind the past 5 minutes and listen to that every day, because that is so incredibly powerful. And all right, next up, we've got Unleashing Ivy, even more from you. Rapid fire questions, surprise questions. YP, are you ready?
Okay. Oh, wow. Okay. Let's go.
All right, my question is about how you get motivated. You provide so much motivation to everyone around you. How does YP get pumped up?
Yeah, I listen to ET. Absolutely. I'm a church boy, man. So I get a lot of inspiration from church and sermons and speakers and things like that. That's how I get pumped up. And then I do my affirmations. Man, I have stuff on my wall that I speak every day to myself. That's how I get pumped up. Music gets me pumped up. I got my gospel stuff, and then I got my dope boy stuff. You know what I'm saying? It's kind of in between, but that in my coaching as a football coach, I get pumped up with my music and my motivation. So that music gets me going. Rhythm gets me going. So, and then ET is just another breed, man. You put him on and run through walls, and he gives you magic powers and all kinds of things. So he's a major, major, major part of my routine.
I love when you said affirmations. It reminds me of Chris and I met. We stayed at the same bed and breakfast.
Yes, yes, yes.
First day of the event, we're the only 2 people of the whole everyone that attended that stayed there, and I got a reimbursement at breakfast. And I was like, "Ooh, money follows me wherever I go." And Chris is like, "That's one of mine too." Pulls up, shows me a picture. We walk into the event and you get reimbursed there. $1,000. I'm like, money follows me everywhere I go. So that's one affirmation that we both use that I wanted to pass along.
I love that. That's a great one. Especially too, because for some people that's really a foreign idea, but it's going to bring so much joy and abundance to your life. So that's awesome. Okay, mine, of course, I got to bring it down to the deep and the dark. Mine has to do with your childhood, the molestation, and now you have 3 boys that are young. And I'm just so curious how this plays into your parenting them, what you share with them, and just how you are using your story and what happened with you into their childhood.
My oldest son is about to be 9, right? So it hits and resonates then, because it's like, okay, that's kind of like my age when it happened. And I think the difference is I talked to my son about it. He knows what happened to daddy. Whether he comprehended it or not, as I was telling him, I don't know. But it's a conversation that I will continue to have. It's something I will talk to him about, this year, reminding him, hey, be mindful of your environments. And if anything like this, happens or starts to happen, or you feel uncomfortable, you tell me, and your mom or a parent or an adult, somebody. You don't hide that. I think my biggest fear is that something does happen or like he tells me, and how I respond. I'm gonna have to really be grounded, because it's going to bring up so much emotion. Like I prepare myself mentally, like, okay, I want to do everything in my power to block them from this, and I'll do my part. Like, but I can't end the life or go to jail, because of that, so I have to control that. But it definitely plays a part. And I'm aware, I kind of look at things different. I'm mindful, of certain things and actions. We haven't got to the sleepover stage, and I'm very skeptical about that. And there's something that him, and his mom would talk about and discuss, and set some boundaries with that. Because we just want to make sure they're safe. So yes, it plays a major part in the parenting. It really does.
Yeah, I'm hearing being honest with your son, also honest with yourself of how you're feeling about it, where you're at with everything.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because I talk to my clients all the time, and I tell them, like, there's nothing we can do that can erase the action that happened to us. Like, it's there. Now we have to accept the fact that it is there, but how do I deal with it? So for my kids, I don't want to be overly crazy, because I want them to live, but I don't want to be underly ignorant, and I'm not paying attention to things. I'm not educating them and not giving them what I didn't get. And no shade to my parents, but what I didn't get, because I had this experience. So this is what I want to prevent in their life. I'm very, very focused on that in certain areas. And that's one of the areas I'm really focused on, to make sure they're aware. So if anything like that comes around, they tell daddy.
God, those little boys are so lucky to have you as their daddy. And they're cute as heck. Oh my goodness. I'm telling you, if you follow Chris, yes, his motivation's great, but those kids, oh man, they're so cute.
Yeah, that's my guys, man.
All right, Chris, last question. If you could go back and tell younger Chris one thing, what would you tell him?
Smile through the pain, laugh through the tears. One day it will all make sense. In life, man, you're going to battle. One thing they said to us when we were kids, the older generation, the most seasoned, they would always say, just keep living. Just keep living. You hear them say it now. And keep living, because life is going to throw you a lot of punches. You're going to make a lot of mistakes. You're going to have a lot of highs. You're going to have a lot of lows. You're going to have a lot of mediums, and you're going to have a lot of plateaus. And, you just have to keep living, smile through the pain, because it's going to be some dark moments, laugh through the tears, because sometimes you're going to cry. But I promise you, one day, all this stuff will make sense, and you just have to believe that and know that's going to be true. No matter what you see, keep your eye on your vision, and, different things are going to come, and you're going to have to adjust, but it doesn't change the vision. It may have to go another direction, but it doesn't change the overall vision, navigating through that. So, just smile and laugh, and just know everything will be well, and like I say all the time, you got to do yourself a favor and you got to go be great.
Not me laughing through my tears over here. Oh man, I don't want our time to end.
I know.
You are amazing. I love you so much. I'm so blessed that the Lord put you in my path. The fact that I had a calling to go to this event. I didn't know how I was going to do it financially. Put it on a credit card, but I know I'm supposed to be there. And you listen to that intuition, and amazing things come out of it. And you're just one of those things, but you're such a blessing. So thank you.
Appreciate that. Thank you, man. Like, it's so funny because I got to tell it, man. I saw her sitting down at breakfast, and one of the people was like, yeah, I think she's in the group. I was like, all right, cool. So I sat down, and she's right. Like, we just started talking. We started laughing. We started talking about things, and then we walked down. I was like, yo, she was so cool. Like, that, it was really cool to have somebody that you can dive in with the event with, and then talk about stuff, and you align. And she was just a dope person. Brooke is so dope. She talked about you in the podcast. She was like, you got to be on the podcast. I was like, heck yeah. Yes, absolutely. So then thank you, for, the follow through and everything. I really appreciate it. And as I am to you, you are to me, to see your know your story, know your history, talk, what we talked about, how you overcome, how you use your story to help people in an area that's not really talked about or discussed. And you're changing lives. You guys are, dynamic in your own way, you know what I mean? And in the health space and mental health and body health and being, moving and consistently moving. I'm going to the gym after this because I got to get moving, right? So, but thank you for allowing me to share and be on your platform. And it's an honor. And that's the key, to relationships. You build dope relationship with people and then you collab and these kind of, great things happen. So I appreciate the opportunity. I really do.
We'll have you back anytime to talk about, as you evolve and change, and who knows what's next for you.
Don't forget about us.
Don't forget about us. Yeah. We'll have you back to talk through, because I feel like there's so much more that we can touch on, and your gifts, they just seem endless that you continually unpack. And I think that's the value of your work, is like, the job's never done. You continue to focus on these principles and you continue to dig into your gifts. And like you said, life's going to keep happening. So I would love, at any moment you want to come back, you come back and you share what you're learning about life. But the last thing that we do in every episode of Ivy Unleashed is sharing your piece of gold, a quote, whether it's yours or someone else's, that speaks to you.
My quote, is on my shirt. Do yourself a favor. And I think it's dope the way, I created that, because it's really doing yourself a favor. You're doing this for yourself. We get caught up in doing things for other people. Then we don't get the response that we want. And that shifts what we believe great is. Do yourself a favor. Go be great. Go be the greatest version of you. Go to be the top version of self, mind, body, soul, and spirit. Like, do yourself that favor and go be great. I love that quote. It's just so much depth to it. So, as you can see, I end everything with it. And I just think I believe in the logic of it. And if you really grasp, it's me doing myself a favor. This is a service to me. I'm going to go be great.
This is Gold Ivy signing off.
Listen to your truth and go chase your gold.